kind of go over it. Nothing fancy here, but it will keep me on track of what I kind of wanted to share about my experience so far investing in Florida as an investor, as a Canadian. So my name is Supriya Mehra, and I'm a CPA plus mortgage advisor with CIBC. And I also have a podcast called Canadian Real Estate 101, where I have different guests who come in and we share experiences. Recently, I had interviewed Diana as well, and her episode will be airing sometime soon. So the idea is to share the knowledge, share what we have learned, bringing on different experts, and picking a topic and going deep dive into it. I have been investing in real estate with my husband since 2007. And our portfolio kind of spans in Ontario, Alberta, Florida. We have a mix of single detached properties, few condos, townhomes, and our last acquisition was a multiplex of four unit townhouse property, four townhouses in a property in Alberta. And we have been, lending privately as well. And I'm also a member of REIN Canada and Keyspire. So over, 15 years of experience in real estate in terms of investing, and also some kind of experience, pretty decent experience in terms of financing when it comes to that with CIBC, with the need lender. So that's a bit about me. Now, I kind of wanted to share a backstory about how it all started in Florida. How did the idea of investing in Florida kind of came about? So even before 2012 September, I know I had the date there. 2011, I would say, was a time frame when was the first time we had gone to Orlando, just to check out Universal Studios. And to be quite honest, we really liked the place, the city, and there was tons of opportunity during that time. If you remember, 2008 crash had just happened. And the city or overall state was kind of recovering from that crisis. So the houses that were being sold in Ontario, specifically GTA, say for example, for 600, 700,000, similar properties were being sold for 150, under 200K. So 3-bedroom, 2-bath kind of idea, detached. So in 2012 September is when we had intentionally gone for a weekend to check out the Orlando area specifically. And that's when we had purchased our very first property. It was a townhouse, and it was pre-construction. And as soon as we saw Matme, which is a Canadian builder, we were all over it. So we did explore a few other opportunities as well. But we ended up deciding to proceed with the pre-construction. And after about, I want to say 6 months after signing up the deal, we were able to close. So we did close sometime beginning of 2013. And our financing was done as Canadian citizens by RBC. Now, keep in mind, we did not have any RBC account or anything to do with RBC at that point, but they were able to give us lending at that time with 25% down, okay? Now, fast forward, it's been a while, and we did sell a couple of acquisitions in the last few years, in the last couple of years. But as of today, we have 4 or 5 parcel of lands in Florida. Then we have 1 townhome that we closed in 2013, and we still have 1 single detached home in the area called Kissimmee. So I wanted to kind of quickly share about our numbers. How much did we purchase for? How much was the financing and all that good stuff? So the purchase price was about 175 back in 2013. That's the amount that we closed at. Like I said, it was a brand new construction, Madame, and we placed 25% down, and this is all in USD, guys. Okay. Financing was through RBC and closing was in January 2013. In today's date, this property is probably valued at about 375, and my realtor is here online as well. Maria, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's the last estimate from, I think a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, is
For which property? For the townhouse or
Lake
for?
Nona. Yeah, Lake Nona.
Oh, that property you're probably gonna get, yeah, over between 350 and 375.
350, 75. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So over the matter of 9 years, 214% appreciation. So even if you reduce that slightly, let's say, 350, you're still looking at about 20% rate of return on that. Now, talking about the rentals for that specific property. Now, our portfolio, we have never explored short-term rental. However, we know that specifically Orlando and few other cities within Florida have a great opportunity for short-term rental if somebody wants to explore that. But our strategy has been long-term tenant. Jackie had mentioned about ROT. So we really want, hassle-free transactions for most of for all of our properties. Don't want to invest too much time and energy towards our tenants. So we decided to go with the long-term tenancy route. And the current rent on that property is about $2,200. And here are some of the expenses. So we pay the property management roughly about 8 to 9% fees on monthly basis. And this includes any renewal or anything like that that comes up, but budget for 10%. Our mortgage interest is, I just got the statement for last year, 3,500 for full year, so roughly about 291. Taxes in this specific area are slightly higher because it is one of the prime locations. It's a really good neighborhood. So we do like that it will hold its value. Taxes are about 350, insurance about 84. Now, HOA is something that you need to be aware of. Most of the properties, from what I understand, most of the areas, this is something that you need to budget for. 194 might sound high, but the other property that we have, it's barely $200 for full year. So depends on the property. So whenever you're researching, make sure you find out how much are the monthly HOA fees, okay? So all in all, net after expenses, annual amount, after, taking out, considering that the principal is part of that, our net income is about $13,000 a year on this. Cash on hand, if I exclude the mortgage principal, the mortgage payments, in our bank account, we receive roughly about $400, budgeting some amount for repairs. Last year, I think we spent maybe $100 on some plumbing repair that was needed. Since it was a newer construction, it's less than 10 years old, it doesn't require too much work, okay? So those are some of the things that you need to consider when you're looking for a property. Definitely your insurance, obviously, and HOA fees, I would say. Our vacancy has hardly been there over the span of last 9 years. It's only been like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and Maria, who's our realtor, along with our property manager team, we have been able to rent it out fairly quickly. So over the last 9 years, we have hardly had vacancy on this property and the other property that we have. So tenant out, it hasn't been an issue with us. And we just make sure that we're getting the right tenants. Obviously, property management team, Marianne team, they do a great job in terms of due diligence. And we haven't, touch wood, had any issues so far, okay? Now, some of the financing options as Canadians. Now, this is something that um, I guess it was brought up that it's not a concern, but some people might shy away from it. So, RBC, TD, and BMO actually have lending solutions for investment properties in US. Okay. Now, I would suggest that you give them a call and understand what are the latest offerings that they have. But the last time I checked, which wasn't too long ago, RBC would lend you up to 4 properties, but that is a combination of Canadian and US. So, say, for example, if you hold 1 property in Canada, you are allowed to purchase 3 more properties with RBC in the US. Now, in terms of the down payment for investment properties, they look for 25%. Okay. TD, I am not 100% sure, but I do know that I don't know how many they allow. One of our mortgages is with TD. They do have lending programs for investment properties, but I am not 100% sure how many they allow for Canadian citizens. Okay. BMO also have a lending program. They allow up to 10 properties, out of which 1 needs to be principal residence and 9 can be investment properties. But their LTV, their loan to value is really high. They would only lend 50% of the property purchase price. So my go-to is definitely RBC. We don't have any mortgages here with RBC. One of our properties has been financed with RBC, and our future properties, we are interested in proceeding with RBC because 25%, 75% loan to value is pretty good. Okay. Now, their interest rates are currently much higher than what we are getting in Canada. So right now, as of today, I know CIBC within Canada is offering about 3.69% for 5-year fixed with 30-year amortization, and variable is hovering around 1.88, something like that for 5-year, 30-year amortization. In US, the rates are much higher that are running right now. You can fix a term 5, 7, 10, 30 years. So that's something that you can consider. But right now, I think some of them are even touching 5% or have already exceeded 5%. So again, when you do your calculations, make sure you use a higher number for interest rate, and they're still expected to go higher. So definitely consider that when you're doing your cash flow and doing all kind of projections and seeing if a property is making sense. Okay. What else? Cross-border banking. So I can't remember, but I think it was Jackie in a call before, he had mentioned that having issues with two account holders, one being US resident and the other one being Canadian. I'm not sure about that. I am a Canadian citizen and resident. I had no issues opening up a TD bank account. And we have another account with CIBC, which was under a corporation, under an LLC. And that took about 3 weeks or so because they had to do the credit check of the LLC and everything. But the TD personal bank account did not take a lot of time at all. So our rental income, our mortgage payments, whatever expenses like taxes, insurance, whatever, are done online through that specific account, and we have 24-hour access to it. All right, some of the things that you should consider are taxes. So depending upon how big of your portfolio and how much income you're earning, there might be some tax consequences. Now, the thing is that if you're paying taxes in US, you might have to pay some taxes in Canada, depending upon what your overall portfolio looks like. So definitely speak to an accountant who has that experience in Canadian taxes, where some of your income is coming from US, okay? What you might want to consider is, again, depending on your portfolio, how big you want to go, consider having your properties under an LLC, limited liability corporation, because as we know, chances of getting sued in US are much higher than in Canada. That's how the country operates, I guess. But you could get under personal name as well. Okay. You want to decide if you want to proceed with a short-term rental, long-term rental, obviously figure out how the management of these properties are going to happen. Long-term, we chose long-term because it's easier, it's peace of mind. We know that there will be not much damage to the property, where if it's in a good neighborhood and we're renting it out to a good family or a good I guess tenant, then chances of damages and stuff like that are less. And get your pre-approval in order if you are considering purchasing through a mortgage. Now, I know of people, and this was back in time when prices were 100K a property, 80,000 a property. People were purchasing on cash, and they would do some lipstick upgrades, put $5,000, $10,000, go to the bank in US itself and refinance. So, the bank would value then at a higher amount at say 100K, and they would value, they would give loan to value would be 70% or something like that. So at least 70,000 of your investment is coming back, and then you just recycle that money again and again and again. Okay. Now, what you also need to know is that loan processing time, we noticed, was much longer than in Canada. At CIBC in Canada, if you're applying for a mortgage, we can turn it around within like 48 hours, something like that, if we need to, if there's a rush to it. In US, for some reason, loan processing takes a very long time. It budget at least 30 days to 45 days when it comes to getting financing there. Okay. I'm not sure why, but they're pretty backlogged, or for whatever reason, it takes time. Okay. They will take all your income from Canada. So your taxes like T1, notice of assessments, perhaps pay stub and stuff will be required. And your credit pull will be done from Canadian, like Canadian credit pull will be required as well, which the banks will do it themselves. Okay. So yeah, start your journey. But before you do that, establish what kind of property you're looking to add in your portfolio. If you're starting out, you might want to consider perhaps a smaller project like a condo or a single family townhouse or something like that. Get some experience into it before you dive really into a multiplex, unless you have established a team there and you understand what you're getting into. I would say that if you're just starting off, start off small, just to get a flavor and understand what goes into it. Once you have established a team, your property management, you understand this, these are the systems you need, like a bank account, you understand all that, give it a few months, and then you can consider exploring some other options. Okay. Yeah, and then understand how much you need in terms of your down payment. So if your budget, so say for example, if 50,000 is what you have from savings, or if you refinance your property and you could pull out 50,000 from your Canadian asset, then your loan to value could probably be, it is 75%. So you can look for a property around 200 mark. So yeah, get a pre-approval from a bank, and that will give you an opportunity to firm out your budget, unless you're purchasing the property in cash, want to do BRRRR strategy and then refinance it at a later date. That's a different scenario. Start looking into which bank you want to open an account with. Ours is with TD, but I'm sure RBC, CIBC, and BMO have options as well. One thing with BMO is actually they wouldn't give you financing unless you already have a relationship with them, either in US or in Canada. So that's one caveat. With RBC, you don't need to have a Canadian relationship. Okay. Yeah, speak to a few realtors, see which target areas you want to proceed in. It might be Florida, it might be some other state. Some of these banks, so RBC can provide lending in all 50 states. TD, however, is limited to 15 states. So make sure whichever bank you're speaking with, understand and clarify if they confirm if they provide financing in the state that you're looking to explore, you're looking to purchase a property. So that's one big thing you need to keep in mind. Some of the deals you can find with wholesalers as well. So try to Google or find different groups of wholesalers if you are doing this full time and you are adamant in terms of finding that right deal for you. For us, it doesn't really work because me and my husband, we are busy professionals, so we need a realtor on board. And Maria, if she's still here, she's our go-to realtor in Florida, Orlando area. Okay. Interview property management companies, understand how you're going to manage that property, and try even few, like before hiring the team that we currently have, we did have another property management team on board for us. But we were not happy with how things were going. That communication was not there, the systems were not there. So that's how, we researched and we got connected with Maria and her team, and we've been happy for the past 6-7 years. We've been with her. Crunch the numbers, make sure they make sense, make sure you're cash positive for sure. And if you've established how much ROI you're expecting and how much work it's kind of involved, do those analysis before, make an offer. So have firm, 3 or 4 things that you need to make sure that it checks your marks before you're making an offer. But like I said at the beginning, we have a diverse portfolio. So far, we've been pretty happy with what kind of returns we've been getting in Florida. Our next purchase is probably going to be in Florida again. But the demand has been so much in that state that we're having a hard time finding the right property as of right now. But I'm sure we will find something in the near future. So yeah, that's all I have, but I'm open to questions.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How come, what made you decide, because you went with RBC for your mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
but your bank account with TD? Curious to know how come you had it separate, and let's say you just didn't have RBC as the account also.
Yeah, you definitely could. We didn't, quite honestly, I had a relationship with TD here and I still do. So I was just comfortable with their platforms and their online banking and everything. So it was an easier process and I had opened the TD account much before we were even considering a mortgage, to be honest. So there's no answer to it. It just so happened, but I'm not against RBC as well, of course. Like, you just need to see what options they have. And we had opened up account much before we were applying for a mortgage.
If you have, for example, a TD account here in Canada, does opening up an American account reflect in the US, or do you have to go down to the US to open up a US bank account?
It's all online, Susan. So as far as I remember, we never had to go into a TD branch per se. And it was through TD Bank USA online itself. So we were able to open up a bank account that way.
Oh, so you just upload your ID and stuff, and that's it?
Yeah, I'll have to confirm, to be honest. It's been a while, so I might be, giving you misinformation on that.
Okay.
But I can't remember visiting a TD branch in US for some reason, but
I just came back from Florida, and the one thing that I noticed is they had a TD bank.
yeah.
And we were too much in relaxation mode, and I promised myself not to do business, and I had to respect my spouse.
Yeah, hilarious.
So for the life of me, I was just dying to open up an account, and other stuff, but
Yeah,
um,
yeah, I hear you. If you and I will get your email address, Diana, after our call. I once I find out, we can send it to the whole group who's attending. Once I find out.
okay, thank you. Thanks.
No problem.
Anyone else have questions? You can just unmute yourself and talk, or you can put up your hand. Yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, I have a question for you. What are are you still planning to buy the next property as your long term? And recently, I think I was looking for a good realtor in Orlando. So if you can give me the contact details of Maria, that would be great.
Yeah.
And do you do mortgages for Canadian citizens? Because you said you are also work with I missed that part. You work with RBC or you work with TD, right?
I'm
But
CIBC. Yeah.
okay, perfect. So then let's say if maybe you know what, if I can touch base with you later on and I would like to personally kind of go ahead and
Yeah.
find property by myself.
I can type on the chat for everybody my contact information. If anybody needs to speak with me, want to pick my brain, or just, want any information, I'm more than happy to answer you guys. Here, that's my email and my phone number there.
And one last question for you. How I know in US the closing is taken care by the title company.
Title company.
So was it Maria who arranged the title company for you, or did you kind of did your own research and find the title insurance company? How did you take care of that process?
Maria, do you want to comment on that?
Sure. Well, as you know, I do own a title company, but normally if you are going to purchase the property, I normally try to get the seller to pay for the title insurance so you guys can save some money. And at that point, if they do accept it, the seller is the one that chooses the title company, unless that, they're not willing to pay for that. Then we can choose our own title company. And I do own one.
Nice.
That's
good to know.
Yeah, most of my investors use it for refinances. And, when we're going to sell a house, a flip, or, and if the seller will not be able to, or doesn't agree to pay the title insurance, then, by law, you can choose your own title company. And I've been doing that for over 10 years.
Nice, that's good. And Maria, it would be great if you can also share your contact details. And I would like to definitely get in touch with Supriya first, see my financing aspect, and then, get in touch with you.
Sure. I don't know how to share my information here.
Here, you see chat there, Maria, at the bottom of the screen?
Share contact. Okay.
Yeah, so just click on chat.
Wait. I don't see it. Okay, got it.
Got it.
I was gonna put it for you.
No, I got it. Sorry, it has been a long day.
And I think the next question, maybe Maria or Supriya, if you can,
Sure.
you guys can kind of pitch to it. What I'm finding is quite challenging for me as a Canadian citizen. I don't have that leverage of exchange 1031, or I'm not that kind of investor who would put all cash and buy it and then go for refinance. And we have lost, I think, at least 10 bids in Orlando area, and then we gave up. And that's the reason we went to Tennessee, because there is less competition. But still, there is a dream of at least owning one property in Orlando. How do you, you as a buyer, Supriya, and Maria, you as a realtor, what do you have to say?
I can. Well, first of all, you have to have a realtor that is knowledgeable about the market and know how to structure an offer. That's very important. So the inspection time, it's crucial. Normally, I'm very successful. I've been doing this for 20 years. I have closed over 1,000 transactions on my own. So it's very important to know how to structure the offer, okay? And to work with a realtor that is well known in the community, because once they see your name, and they see, I've been doing this for a long time, when they see it's, Maria Vega, on the offer, and then it's well structured, you have to put like a high escrow deposit, you have to be very aggressive, you know what I mean? So you have to show your proof of funds. If you're doing, if you don't have cash, then you have to be very creative. You have to like show, proof of funds, a pre-approval letter, so they can know that you actually are prepared, to close this deal with your 20% down, your closing costs, your reserves. And, the inspection time is very important when you submit an offer, because I normally do 0 inspection time. Okay, it's a trick. So we go, 0 inspection time, $20,000, $30,000 deposit. Why do we be aggressive like that? Because of the market. You have to be like that. You won't lose your deposit because you're going to have a long contingency on it. You understand? So, those are tricks. So the other day I put an offer with $100,000 deposit. So, I won that offer. I mean, it was a big project, but that's the only way, you have to tell the seller, you know what, I'm committed. Here, I pull my whole down payment down. So if it's, if it's a 20%, I'll do the 20% right now. I'm going to put it in escrow at the title company. I want you to know that I'm committed. 0 days inspection. So why 0 days inspection? Because I will go and, look at the property, and I know, I have a lot of knowledge about, the condition of the properties and stuff like that. And I have inspectors that can be there immediately, and nobody needs to know that. So we, before we send the escrow, we can actually inspect the property, and I'll tell you, we're good to go. So those are, first of all, you have to look for a realtor that knows the market and that does this full time. And also it'll be very good if you find a realtor that is an investor. I'll be more than happy to help you. If you guys, I share my contact right there on the chat.
Yeah, it's there. We can see it.
Yeah, I mean, any other questions? I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about, you were talking about the 1036 exchange. 1038 exchange. So just to let you know, Canadians are not qualified for that. Only US citizens, unfortunately. That's why I don't recommend, Canadians or any foreigners to do any type of, flipping or things like that.
Exactly is that, Maria, for a lot of us, we don't know exactly what that is. Can you explain a little bit more about it?
About what?
About 1036 or 1031 that you're talking about.
The 1038 exchange. Well, that is a tax hole that the IRS put, but unfortunately is not available for Canadians. So let's say, like I have used it before. So in order for me to not pay taxes, so if I do a flip, right, and I just sold the property, then the government will give you 6 months to reinvest that money. So if you reinvest that money in another real estate, property, another property, you will be exempt from paying taxes.
Okay.
It's kind of like, holding on to, so you kind of like, reinvest and reinvest and reinvest and reinvest, then you don't have to pay that 30% or higher, property gain taxes. And it's called 1038 exchange. You can Google it, and you will get a lot of, if you go on the IRS itself, they'll give you a lot of information about it. But it's kind of like, irrelevant because foreigners cannot do it anyways. A lot of people think they can do it, but no, they won't be able to. Another tip that I will give you, I'm not an accountant, but instead of opening an LLC, it's always better to open a corporation. because corporation is the only entity that will be exempted from withholding on taxes on foreigners. So if you own a corporation and you want to resell your property or sell your property in the future, the IRS will not withhold the 15% that it's held every time a Canadian or any foreigner sells the property. But I'm not an accountant, but those are the things that I have learned. You have to always go back to your accountant and ask your accountant based on your financial background.
Yeah, and things keep on changing, every year. So just make sure you're abreast with what kind of changes or what's latest, pretty much in terms of taxation.
Yeah.
Maria, I wanted to pick your brain also about landlord rules and regulations in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So over here in Ontario, we have pretty strict rules. Like we cannot increase the amount of rent by a certain amount. We cannot just evict them. So what does that look like in Florida?
Well, Florida is the best state ever to be. It's very landlord friendly. It's pretty easy to do an eviction here. There is not a cap on the renting increase, which is great. However, we want to be fair. We don't want to, especially if we have a good tenant like you, for example, the property that we have in Kissimmee.
Yep.
I mean, that tenant has been there since you purchased the property.
Right.
She has struggled a little bit, but she has been a tenant for like 6-7 years. So we want to be, fair, but there is no restrictions. You can increase the rent by 100%. And the eviction legal process is pretty easy. So if somebody doesn't pay, we do post them. We give them 3 days to pay the rent. If they don't pay the rent within those 3 days, you are entitled to submit the eviction immediately after the 3rd day. And it takes about literally 3 to 4 weeks, no more than that. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, see, that's a big plus for us who invest in Ontario or in Canada in general, because we have huge issues when it comes to, weird tenants or non-payments and stuff like that. We have to serve them so many notices. We need to wait till it goes into jurisdiction for, all these cases. And there's a huge backlog of these kind of tenant landlord cases. So that in itself is such a huge plus to be investing or looking into Florida as a market, as a potential place to be investing. Because if you remember, Maria, we did have that case in Genoa in one of our properties that we sold a year ago, that the tenant wasn't, I think it was just a month that he was behind, and then we literally took an action and we evicted them. We brought it up to par. And at that time, we decided to sell the property because we wanted to reinvest somewhere else. But it was such an easy process, whereas it can be a nightmare. We have a property in Kitchener and it's a nightmare. Like, this tenant has been there for 5 years. Doesn't want to, obviously we cannot ask for a raise in rent. They don't want to do cash for keys as well, that we had offered last year, and it was a good amount that we had offered, but they were asking for a ridiculous amount to leave the property. So, just from that experience, like, we have had some positive experience investing in Florida, and that's why when we went in Orlando a couple of weeks ago, that's one of the markets that we're looking again to invest in.
I mean, something I want to add to that is I've been doing this for a long time, and I can count the evictions that I have done. I mean, if you have a good property manager assisting you, we take a lot of pride in, screening our people, because we don't want that. We don't want to go through the headache of, going to court and to have a bad tenant and things like that. It's very rarely that we actually went through few evictions due to the COVID. Yeah. But, over the last 15 years, I can count the evictions that we have done, even though including COVID. So, screening the tenant is the key.
Yeah.
You know, you don't just want to pull whoever on your property. You want to make sure they have a good rental history. You want to verify their employment. You want to verify their credit, their background, et cetera, et cetera. So having a good property manager and realtor is the key to invest anywhere.
Agreed. Now, behalf of everybody, I think the question that people might be interested in, what are some of the prices that you're seeing in the market, and relatively what kind of rent can they expect? So say, for example, if something, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, which was probably selling for 125, we know back, 10 years ago, what is that looking like in today's market, which quite honestly might not as bad as how Ontario market is today. So
Well, right,
through that.
depends on, how you can get a $350,000 property and get $2,200, and rent. It all depends on the area, but that's why you better off buying like a multifamily. You can get like a duplex, in areas like Lakeland, Polk County, south of Disney World, for like 250,000 to 75, and you can get $2,000 roughly. So you get a better return on your investment on multifamilies. So it all depends, because I do have investors that tell me, oh, Maria, I don't want, houses older than 10 years, or I don't want houses in this area. So I don't want multifamily. Or I don't. So, we have properties for everybody, and it all depends on, what is your plan as an investor. But we can get, just an average of, 350,000, and you'll get like a $2,000 rent, something like that. Sometimes we can get better deals. If you have cash, I don't know if any of you will have the cash to purchase properties, then you can buy like fixer-uppers or properties that come available that that might need some rehabs, and those are better deals. But I'd be more than glad to assist any of you, individually, and to talk more about any type of investment here in Orlando.
Yeah. And Maria has been, like I said, our go-to realtor for the last 7-8 years now. I've been referring her a lot, and yeah, she's doing great. And she was referred to me by another investor who has 100 properties in Florida.
I did 100 properties, yes.
Yeah, and he's a Canadian. So if anybody wants his information, his name is Anil Walia. So if you guys Google or YouTube him, he has a bunch of episodes and stuff. So listen to his story. And Maria is one of his go-to realtors as well in this area.
He didn't believe me when I told him I was going to sell him 100 properties. No, I told him 50. I said, I'll sell you 50 properties. He's like, no, that's too many. And then when we hit 50, I said, let's go for 100.
There you go.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, great guy. Okay.
Do you guys have any other questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too. Yes.
I think, yeah. Go ahead, Amriti.
Yeah, hi, this is Sheetal. How are you?
Hi, Shika.
Hey, so Supriya, I have a question. Let's say I've bought an investment property in Canada and that is not rented out yet, but I get an opportunity in the US. Should that be rented out first? Are there any pros and cons, or are there any rules and regulations that one should think about?
I don't know exactly how the lending criteria work in US, to be quite honest. But having a discussion, so call RBC 1-800 number. I think I might even have it somewhere here for you guys. Yeah, okay. So RBC USA number, it's I'll put it out in the chat. Call them, fill out a form, and they will give you a call. So have a discussion with one of their representatives, and they will be able to guide you a bit more, because it all depends upon different kind of requirements from US lending and all that, and different banks might have different requirements, to be honest. So if yours and Amrit's income is able to qualify without even renting the property out, that I know which one you're referring about, then you might be okay to get a loan. And that's why I encourage you to get a pre-approval or have a discussion with a mortgage broker or banks as well. And that way you'll get a better idea of what you can qualify for.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Usually if it was a Canadian bank, I would say that even if it's not rented, it's fine, because in Canada, we can take what we call as a fair market rental value, which is done by the bank itself. You don't pay for it. So even if the property is not rented, we include it in your income in order to qualify you.
Okay, makes sense. All right.
What else, guys?
I've
Yeah.
got another question. This is Numair here.
Yes.
So I've got a couple of properties here in Canada, and I've been thinking to get into the US, and a couple of markets I was looking at, and some people from a Florida perspective have recommended Jacksonville.
Mhm.
So wanted to, a lot of people here are talking about Orlando and some of the other cities, and I would prefer a multifamily type of a. So how is Jacksonville? It seems to be a popular destination currently. What are the prices like, purchase prices like, and what's the, is the bidding wars just as bad as other parts of Florida?
Well, unfortunately, that's not my market, so it will be hard for me to, tell you exactly what's going on there. My area is Central Florida. Jacksonville, it's a little far out, so I don't do business there. So I won't be able to really, help you with that area. I don't really know, what's going on there, because it's not
Okay.
the area, of expertise for me. I can help you with any of, the Central Florida area, South Florida. I do a lot of business there, like in Fort Lauderdale, Melbourne, Miami too, but I don't go that far north.
Okay.
So there
Mhm.
was a webinar that I had entered maybe a couple of months ago, through Right Club Canada. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's run by Sarah Laurie. So they had a representative from Jacksonville, and they do a bunch of business where they would purchase properties, like a pool of portfolio of different properties, fix them, and then rent them out and so on. Based on what they were saying, there is expected growth in Jacksonville. The prices on an average, they were saying, was around 200, if I remember this correctly, 200, 225, but there is opportunity for multifamily as well. So yeah, I would say that do a bit more research in that specific area. Another thing that they were mentioning is that there is more expected employment coming up in that particular city. Government is also investing a bit more. So there is more migration expected to happen over the next 10 years in Jacksonville.
Great. Thanks for that information. Yeah, if you have any, I'd like to get in touch with any highly recommended realtors for Jacksonville as well. And Maria, I'm definitely going to get in touch with you as well. A follow-up question. Thanks both of you. A follow-up question regarding, getting into multifamily. Can Canadians participate in syndication?
I don't know.
What do you mean? I'm not
So
quite.
I guess as a Canadian, if say we have a limited partnership corporation or something, I don't know like what's a better type of a corporation that would be. So let's say there's a corporation, it's set up, it's a holding corp, and the holding corporation then you get multiple investors to invest into the shares of that corporation, and then the corporation buys multiplexes?
Well, is more like an accounting question.
Okay.
I can give you a contact of an accountant here in the US. That's not my area
Okay.
of expertise. I can definitely answer some questions about real estate, but not accounting. But I can give you the contact of a good accountant here. I'll put it on the chat.
Okay,
And
thanks. Thank you.
Nomer, I
Mhm.
might be able to connect you with somebody who does something similar. There's a company that used to be called TriView Capital out of Vancouver. I don't know if you've heard of them. Similar idea, syndication, where they have multiple projects going on in Texas and few other states. And they sell partnerships, like they'll sell you shares and you invest in that for however long the project is running for, 3 to 5 years, say for example.
Mhm.
And your returns are kind of dependent on those projects. Could be dividend driven, or it could be that your money is held for 5 years, whatever, and then you invest through them. Another company that we have personally invested through is called Graybrook. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. So Graybrook has projects in US that we have invested. One particular one that comes to my mind is they have a condo project going in Miami. And we had invested through our RRSPs,
Mhm.
through Olympia Trust in the Graybrook, holding. So we have few shares through that strategy as well.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be great if you could connect me, Supriya,
Yep.
to those people.
Yep.
I'd
This
really
guy
appreciate
is
it. Thank you.
Taylor, so I will connect you. If you just send me an email on the chat email that I have sent you, I'd be happy to connect you with the partner, with them.
Sure.
Where
You want me to?
I can add to that. Like I also invested funds in Graybrook because Graybrook is definitely a big name. Do research on them. Yeah, I have invested in one of their funds, and it is, I think, not in Miami one. I forgot it. I think it's another part of the US. But yeah, the returns are good. But yeah, you want to see like they most likely their type of investment is like you have to park your money for 5 years, but the return is approximately 20% per annum. Again, it's not guaranteed, but based on their past performance, that's what they say. But yeah, it's a good name in real estate investment if you want to leverage your RSPT FSA. And coming back to the question, I think Supriya already answered, but there is I know an Canadian investor. He recently acquired some 300 units multiplex, and now he's his name is Jose Jeffrey. So if you look it up, he is also raising funds for his 300 units. And he did exactly what like your question was, like, can a Canadian go and buy and then raise the funds? 100% you can do it. I don't know the process how to do it, but it's definitely doable. Some Canadians are doing it for sure.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
And I think Susan had a question.
Sorry.
Or do you want to? Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to add one last point. Through Graybrook, Romer, and everybody else, you need to be an accredited investor in order to be able to invest through your RSPs or TFSAs, however you want to invest. So that's something that you need to know. And same with the other company I'm referring to you. It used to be called TriView Capital. I can't remember what it is called now. But anyways, if you plan on taking that route, you need to be an accredited investor. Just putting out there.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Susan, do you want to come on and ask your question?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to know if just because here in Canada, Airbnb income is a little tricky. I just wanted to know if banks look at income from Airbnb, if they consider income from Airbnb when qualifying for a mortgage.
Yeah, in US, I'm not sure, Maria, unless you have some insight on that. Like I said, me and my husband, we just go with long-term rentals. We haven't explored Airbnb strategy at all. So I would be the last person to answer that question.
Because whether you have a long-term or Airbnb, your realtor, your property manager will give you, a form. It's either a 1099 or 1042, and it'll tell you, how much money you netted from, all your expenses. When you have an Airbnb, of course, there's more expenses than a long term. So let's say that your revenue was $30,000 minus electricity, minus, cable, minus cleaning, minus this. And then the bank will go based on your income, on your taxes. So it's pretty much the same here in the US, because the US lenders, they will base everything on your taxes, on your income, on your net income.
So it doesn't matter if the income is from Airbnb or not. It just matters that it's income.
It matters that you have, file your taxes, and they look at your on your profit and loss on the Schedule C when you do taxes here in the United States. If you have a company, you have to have even if you're an individual, you have to have a Schedule C. And right there, it'll show your net profits from your rentals or,
And the
investment.
bank will look at that.
Yes,
the bank will
they will
consider.
look at that line, at the net profit.
So they don't require a lease, like to qualify for the mortgage. They don't require like that it. So yes, they look at Airbnb as income.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, in Canada, it's slightly different. They would not consider Airbnb income. They would assume that it's a long-term lease, and they would take that amount. So say, for example, if you're on an average net, not net, gross, you're making about, I don't know, say $4,000, $5,000 to Airbnb. Whereas if it was a single family, your dwelling would be rented for 2,500 or 2,000. They will be taking 2,000 or 2,500 in order to qualify for your mortgage. They will not consider Airbnb income.
When you do Airbnb, they're going to average.
Rather than, yeah.
24 months. That's another thing. You have to be doing Airbnb for two years.
So you wouldn't qualify right away? You would have to.
Well, if you want to use the income, but if you want to buy, see, when you're going to buy a property here in the US, you don't really need to tell them. See, for Canadians, is I do loans. I'm licensed to do loans. Unfortunately, I don't do loans for Canadians, so I can speak for, how Americans are qualified. So when you're going to buy a property here, right? I think that we can. There is some banks that will do foreign nationals. They're not as great as the Canadian banks as far as the interest rate and all that. I mean, I do have financing for foreigners, and they're easier. Like if you're going to get a property, you can just tell them this is going to be a rental, and we do a different appraisal. It's for it's like type of like a rental appraisal. Yeah. So the appraiser will actually tell the bank, listen, I did appraise the property, and I also did a search about the rental comparables around the area. And this is going to be pretty much like $2,000. So, and the bank will count that as an income immediately from the get-go.
Yeah, similar to what we do here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to be conservative, I would say that they should be able to take it as a long-term income for mortgage qualification criteria. But in my experience, US banks are more aggressive in the sense that they will be willing to provide more financing and more options that way. So depending upon which lender you're dealing with, they might be able to consider Airbnb income. You just need to speak to those specific lenders and see how they use Airbnb
They
income.
are. A lot of thing is that, they're pricey. Like I do have a
There you
that
go.
and they charge like 2.75 points, almost 3 points up front.
Okay, so the lending fees is much higher.
Yeah. That is higher. Mhm.
So I do have a tax question.
Okay.
So when you rent out a property in the United States as a foreign investor, do you have to pay tax to the United States?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, you have to. You can.
Yeah. You have to pay, but
count?
it's not double counted, which means that you wouldn't be double taxed. If you've already been taxed in US, you wouldn't be taxed for the same amount in in Canada, sorry.
Okay, cool, thanks. Does anyone have, I feel like Susan had a question for some reason. You have a
I
question?
just don't, I just don't know if it's like a question to ask, like it's a bank question. So